Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whichever part of the world you're attending from. Thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate your presence. And I'm Dr. Almas Tazeen. I'm the consultant and senior researcher at the Center for Organizational Excellence Research. And I'm going to be the host for the session along with Dr. Robin Mann. So next slide, please. So this is the structure for today's webinar. We'll be talking about the background of the International Best Practice Competition, the guidance and tips on writing your application. And in case you have any queries, you can note them down so that we can address them at the end of the session during the Q&A. Next. So again, a very, very warm welcome to all of you. I'm sure you're as excited for the session as we are. About the background, I'll be speaking about a bit about the background. The Center for Organizational Excellence Research and VBI.com and the Global Benchmarking Network are the official organizers of the competition. Next slide, please.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and we have a prestigious organization like the Abu Dhabi Chamber of Commerce and Industry, along with the Abu Dhabi International Center for Organizational Excellence, ADICO, that administers the Sheikh Khalifa Excellence Award as a partners. So we really have a group of supporters from all around the world. As you can see, they also provide us with the jury members. So we thank all the supporters from all around the world who've been extending their support to us over all these years. Next. So the International Best Practice Competition was founded in 2012 by the Center for Organizational Excellence Research that organizes it. It started as a virtual event back then, but since 2021, it has been organized as a virtual event. And in this period, which is over a decade, we've received 800 applications from around 27 plus countries. So a lot of exchange of rich information has happened over these years. Some of them that you can see on hosted on the Best Practice Improvement resource. We have with us Dr. Robin Mann, who is the founder and chair of the International Best Practice Competition. He is the director of the Center for Organizational Excellence Research, New Zealand, and he's also the chairman of the Global Benchmarking Network. So Dr. Robin Mann will be walking us through the application process and awards criteria. So I'll hand over the mic to Dr. Robin Mann. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Almas, and welcome again to this webinar session introducing you to the 11th International Best Practice Competition. Just a little bit of background on the Centre for Organisational Excellence Research. Our passion is encouraging organisations to learn from each other, to share best practices, and ultimately improve towards business excellence. And this is why we formulated the International Best Practice Competition many years ago as a simple means, really, and a fun mechanism for organisations to share their best practices. So it's supposed to be a quick and easy way for organisations to share their best practices through a 5-page written application, an 8-minute presentation, and a 10-minute Q&A session with a jury. So, and the opportunity is that all organisations who participate can listen to all the other presentations and read all the other applications, then ultimately to help your organisation to improve. In addition to that competition, we do various other activities. We actively help organisations to do benchmarking using the structured trade best practice benchmarking methodology, which is used in many, many countries worldwide. And we published many books as well of successful case studies of benchmarking. We also founded the Best Practice Improvement resource, a website resource, and that actually hosts all the applications for the International Best Practice Competition and all the videos. And as a participant of the International Best Practice Competition, you get free access to the BPI.com. So ultimately, your best practices will be hosted there, but also you can see all the past best practices as well. There's 700 of them or more, and plus also lots of other content as well from other partners are on that website resource. And we also have PhD students as well, doing research in business excellence and benchmarking. And we also help organize countries as well, introduce national strategies to encourage excellence and benchmarking. So this is our general area, and our passion is to help organizations to improve. As I've said, you'll get free access to bpr.com. So your written application and your video will ultimately go onto the bpr.com, but you do have a chance before it is actually on the website itself to highlight if anything is commercially sensitive before we actually publish anything. So just to let you know. There are 4 major awards and competitions. The main one is the International Best Practice Competition, and that's the one I've already described, you know, with the 5-page written application, the 8-minute presentation, and then the Q&A session. It's the easiest competition to participate in because you just need to have a best practice in any aspect of your organization's operations. So it could be you've got a best practice in HR, it could be in leadership, it could be with respect to customer services. It could be with respect to how you're introducing AI into your organization. So it can be a very specific practice inside your organization. While the other awards are more sort of holistic, they're looking at how your whole organization approaches a particular topic or subject matter. So we have the organization-wide innovation award, which looks at how your whole organization embraces innovation. We have another award which looks at how your organization approaches sustainability and you know, the ESG criteria to make sure you're socially responsible organization. And we also have a separate award for benchmarking, seeing how you encourage and embed benchmarking right through your whole organization, from your strategy to your people, always being looking at ways to improve their performance and their organization's performance. We're looking outwards, trying to explore best practices from other organizations. So primarily for this session, we'll be focusing on the International Best Practice Competition and what's required for that. Just so you know, some countries have national best practice competitions that feed into the International Best Practice Competition. So that is the case for India, Iran, and the Philippines. So they have their own competitions, and then they encourage the winners of their national competitions to then compete in the International Best Practice Competition. But we also have other countries like New Zealand and Australia, where they integrate their national competition inside the International Best Practice Competition. So they encourage organizations from their countries to apply to the International Best Practice Competition. And yes, they can be recognized by the International Best Practice Competition, but also they'll be recognized through their national competitions. And that recognition is achieved at a national basis for those organizations that achieve the highest star rating from their particular countries who enter the International Best Practice Competition, and often have their own award ceremony as well inside their country. Again, if your country does not have a national best practice competition and wants to see how it can work with us, because we're always trying to look at how to encourage more organizations to participate, because that helps to, you know, even it helps them in the spread of more best practices, increases the amount of learning internationally, then please do get in touch with me, and we could help you to set up a national competition inside your country if that is of interest. Okay, so when organizations enter the International Best Practice Competition, then they are going to be assessed through the IBPC best practice certification levels. And the whole purpose of the International Best Practice Competition is to encourage you to improve your work practices. So this is why the certification levels are in place. And the event is called the International Best Practice Competition. So we're particularly looking for best practices which reach a standard of 5 stars. So if your best practice reaches a standard of 5 stars, it means that the jury consider your best practice at an international level. Therefore, it would be of interest to other organizations in other countries around the world. Therefore, other organizations around the world could learn from your particular best practice. Whilst 4 stars is a slightly lower level, it's still a commendable achievement. it means we believe that best practice is at a national level, therefore would be of interest to other organisations inside your country. And then we have 3 stars, which is the level of competence, and 2 stars at the level of progressing, and obviously have 1 star. We have, in fact, had a number of organisations in the past initially enter the competition and being assessed as a 3 star or 4 star best practice, and then gone on and refined and reviewed and improved their best practice to reach a 7 star in a few years' time. So this can be considered when you enter the international best practice as an opportunity for learning and for improving your current practices, as well as achieving recognition if you're already at a high level of maturity for your practice. So the award prizes, the highest accolade you can achieve through the competition is achieving a 7 star for a best practice. So this is very, very difficult to achieve, but it's where a best practice really has a wow factor about it. It's not only an international best practice, but it's something unique, or it's very incredibly impactful, or in terms of how it's been introduced into the organization, it's been introduced in a very fast sort of cycle time, very quick time, but again, producing this tremendous impact, or there's some differentiator or something really special about it that makes the jury want to really highlight this as something that it's a role model and other organizations can learn from. We also have winners for the best SME best practice. That's for an SME in our criteria is an organization of 50 or less employees. And then we also have winners for the 21 IBPC categories of excellence. And these winners must achieve at least 5 stars recognition. So you can be winner of a particular category of excellence and not achieve 7 stars, but you must achieve at least 5 stars. So we're trying to recognize the best practice in a particular category that the jury feels is the strongest in that particular category. So these are the 21 categories. Occasionally, we might have a category where we don't have an organization that's got a 5 star or above certification level, in which case then there'll be no winner for that particular category, but that's very rare. Normally we have a winner for every category that's shown here. And in addition, we have Pioneer in Excellence prizes. And this is really to encourage organizations not to sort of embrace benchmarking and improvement right across the whole organization and to submit more than one best practice. So we have a prize for the organization that has the most best practices assessed as 6 stars and above, a prize for an organization that has most best practices 5 stars and above, and 4 stars and above. Ultimately, the more best practices you have inside your organization, and the stronger your organization is going to be in pursuing world-class performance and also obviously meeting your stakeholder needs. So the benefits of participating in the competition are hopefully, and I'm sure, numerous, and you can see them already. For me, it's really it's the opportunity to learn. That this is why we introduced a competition, the opportunity to improve, the opportunity to benchmark your practices against other organizations which have a similar mentality of trying to be the best that they can be. We obviously do have the recognition, and it is pleasing to receive recognition. But I think that the main focus here should be on improvement and ultimately to have as many best practices inside your organization moving forward and getting better to help your organization to be more competitive and meet, say, your stakeholder needs. We design a competition so that we believe it's motivational. It's motivational because of the other best practices you can learn from. I say you can attend all the webinar sessions, but it's also motivational because we try to make it fun. We sort of run it as a competition, and so that you enter, you submit your application, you can deliver your presentation, you have the Q&A session with the jury, it's assessed, the jury then decide which ones are then going to go forward into the next round. So after round one, there's going to be another round where you then reach the final. But there is actually a process where the jury share with everybody which ones have been identified as potential finalists, and then ultimately the finalists are announced, and then after that we then start to issue the overall star ratings. So I think the opportunity for learning is great for the benchmarking. We also promote your best practices. It doesn't matter whether you achieve 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, 6 stars, 7 stars. We think you're all fabulous organizations who enter the competition, and we try to do as much promotion of the work you're doing as possible through social media. We also very, very good in terms of providing feedback. And this is quite important. When you write your written application and you submit it, then my team will assess your written application before it goes to the jury. And they will give you feedback on how you can improve your written application. So before your application goes to the jury, my team will give you feedback on how you can improve that written application. So that, and then hopefully you resubmit it again based on our feedback. And then that application will then go to the jury. And so we believe then the written application is written in the strongest way possible to represent your good work, and then hopefully will achieve the highest accolades from the jury itself. So I think that is a very useful process, and obviously you get feedback from the jury too, and you can compare as well how you're doing your written application and presentation against the other contestants. Ultimately, the whole purpose of this competition, as I say, is to develop the spirit of improvement and build this a best practicing culture inside your organization. And I think the more you see best practices from other organizations as well, and how motivated all other teams are too, it helps to bring back even more motivation to your own organization. So we do provide, in terms of recognition, we provide verified certificates and badges. So these are examples of the badges you will receive, and you can display them on LinkedIn or any social media as you wish. These are winners and participants in previous editions of the International Best Practice Competition from all over the world. And we have photographs of many of the winners too. Because our team travels a lot around the world as well, if you have got recognition at a 5-star or above, we generally let you know we're in your city or town, and we're welcome to have photographs with you to celebrate your achievements. We have over 65 experts who are part of our jury. And these are experts, and we make sure when we invite people to be jury members that these people are highly competent in their particular areas. We make sure as well there's no conflict of interest. So we try to make sure if there are presentations from a certain country, then the jury members are from a different country. Occasionally, a jury member might be from the same country where a presentation is being given or an organization is from. In which case, again, we make sure that there is no conflict of interest with that organization and that person has not worked with that organization before. When we have the presentation stage of the competition, we group the presentations together by topic area. And those presentations are in webinar sessions of 7 presentations. So there'll be 7 best practices shared within a webinar, generally on a similar topic. And this is also how we make sure our experts are experts in the topics which are discussed in that webinar, because we invite our judges to come forward who would like to be a judge for that particular webinar session based on their competencies and their expertise. Okay, project timeline, guidance and tips on writing your application. So this provides you really with the big picture. Round 1 is the submission process. At the moment, we're encouraging organisations to submit by the 3rd of March, because this is the early bird deadline, and this is when the price to enter the competition is at the lowest, which is at $380 to enter the competition. Later on, the price will be raised. We actually have 3 calls for applications. So this is a first call where it is an early bird application call, where you pay the lowest fee to enter the competition. We all through, even in the later stages, we do keep the prices quite low. We don't want to inhibit organisations applying to the competition. The whole competition is actually run at a cost. So we try to encourage as many organisations to participate as possible. So you will submit your best practice application. It will be assessed by my team, give you some feedback. You can then resubmit, and then it'll be ready to be seen by the jury. And that is then round 2. And we'll have 15 or more webinar sessions based on the particular topics. And then the jury will then decide, who are the 25 potential finalists. So they'll whittle the large number down to 25 potential finalists. They'll be informed who they are. We'll announce that publicly to everybody. And then from that, again, they'll be studied again by the jury, and then they'll announce the 14 finalists. And the 14 finalists give their presentation again, usually the same presentation, but they can update it if they want. Again, the written application is given to the jury members, and this will be a different jury than the previous jury. We have 2 finalist sessions of 7 presentations each, so 14 in a final, and then ultimately they're given recognition at the appropriate level. Normally, could be anywhere from 5 to 10 or more of the finalists usually achieve 7 stars because they've gone through this whole process. From that situation, the jury can then calibrate back what will be the star ratings of all the other participants. And then we announce the winners and the 7-star, those that achieve 7 stars, and the winners of the categories in August. So it's quite a long process from start to finish, but you'll be following it all the time. You can watch all the different presentations. So it's just a fantastic opportunity to learn and to be involved in such a process like this. In addition to, say, the International Best Practice Competition as well, we actually have the other awards you can see at the bottom. The timeline is slightly delayed as respect to the International Best Practice Competition. So you have more time to actually enter those competitions. We actually have less applicants for them because it's a more thorough process. But again, that whole assessment process will be finished in August. So with that, I'm going to pass over now to Dr. Almas to walk you through writing an application.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Robin. So the application process mainly involves 3 stages: writing an application, delivering an 8-minute presentation, and participating in a Q&A session. For the presentation and the Q&A session, we'll be delivering a separate webinar once we reach that stage. So in this webinar, we'll be speaking about how to write your application. Next slide, please. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the written application has 3 sections: title and type of best practice. Section 2, which is most important, which is your 5-page application describing your best practice, entire best practice. And section 3, which is your contact details. So we'll be speaking about section 1 right now, which 1.1 is the title of the best practice. You just don't have to worry a lot about this entire section 1. Just pay attention that the title should be 8 words or less so that it can be accommodated on the certificates and the badges. And regarding section 1.2, you just have to temporarily, categorize your best practice in terms of where do you think it fits in all these IBPC categories of excellence. But the ultimate decision lies on the IBPC committee, which decides which is the most suitable category for your best practice. So you don't have to really get worked up with it. We'll be talking at length about section 2 here, which is divided into 6 subsections. And we'll be giving you guidance and tips on this. Next, please. Yeah, so the section 2 involves six subsections, which is essentially your criteria on which the jury decides how much, what star rating should your best practice get. So these are the assessment criteria. 2.1 is clarity of best practice. Then it is level of deployment, level of innovation, best practice performance, which is your results, your best practice evidence, review, and next steps plan. So we'll be talking about them in a few minutes' time. But the general structure of your application, as we said, it should be a 5-page page application in Calibri font size 10. And how do you accommodate all that information in 5 pages? Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. If you use those pages very wisely, general idea would be using 3/4 of every page for dedicating 3/4 of every page for each subsection, and being precise and concise is the key. Using relevant pictures, graphs, diagrams, or illustrations is encouraged, but ensure that they are very high quality images, so that the judges don't have to squint and see that what are in those images. So next slide, please. Yeah, general tips, do's and don'ts. If you think that we are going too fast, please don't go overwhelmed, because we'll be providing you a PDF file of this presentation and also the video recording that you can refer back to when you're writing your application. So in case you think we are fast, please apologies for that. So general guideline would be providing an application which is very crystal clear to the judges that, okay, this is your best practice, and they don't have to refer back and forth in the entire application, going for references and, searching for details. So for example, if you're writing an application and giving a very ambiguous statement like, the older process negatively impacted the service delivery. And in comparison, if we write that same statement as the older process delayed the service delivery to 115 customers per month with a 3-day postponement for every customer, it gives a very clear picture, very objectively tells you what was the situation. So always try to be objective and factual in your application. Always state the month and year of the information. Always label and reference your visuals. Like you have to label your figures as figure 1 and then reference them back in the content. We cannot say that you cannot use technical jargons. Of course you can, but then you have to explain them, because the judges may not be from your industry and the audience may not be from your industry. So full form of acronyms is highly encouraged. Don'ts is just have to remember a few things, like avoid repeating the same information in different sections, because it might sound that you're repeating yourself again and again. Put the right information in the right section and use English as your language of communication. If you have certain information like social media posts, which are in another language, so that is okay, but then English should be the main communication language. Section 2.1 is your clarity of best practice. This is the backbone of your application. This is the section which decides the other section, like the other, this section actually binds everything together. So it is very important to describe your best practice as when you start the written application. Your best practice should start with either our best practice is so and so, or our best practice describes so and so. So if you see this example on the left, it gives a very clear and crisp definition of your best practice, whereas the definition on this right side is incomprehensible. If you read it, it doesn't give you any idea. It just confuses you. So you should avoid that, and you can refer to the detailed definition later. Next slide, please. And it's also important to describe the scope and boundaries of the best practice. What is inside, what is included in the best practice, what is excluded from the best practice. So one example could be human resources. So for example, if you had a transformation happening in the HR sector, HR department of your organization. So were all the HR, was all the human resource force included in your best practice? Was it only part-time, or was it everybody, like full-time, part-time, everybody? So if everybody's included, please mention that in the scope that they were included, or who were excluded. So this is one example. And also the boundaries, like whether the financial budgeting was a part of your best practice, or was it a different, what was it not a consideration for your best practice. So scope and boundaries is very important. Next, please. General tips for description is, here the context is very important. You can read the tips in detail later, but then one point that I would like to highlight is the context is very important. Why was your best practice implemented? What is the trigger factor that led your leadership in deciding, okay, we need some changes to take place in organization or in our processes or systems, or we need this initiative. So were there any challenges that you were facing earlier that motivated them to take this decision? Did you identify any opportunities, technological opportunities, or like did you think that digital transformation may be a good change for your organization? So the context is very important, that why did you start this best practice in the first place? So please include that as well. Next. So next section is level of deployment 2.2. This is the section where you describe how did you run the whole show from the stage of conceptualization to actually implementation. When was it completed? So you have to describe everything, and using a timeline, chronological milestones, process flowchart is a very, very helpful way to present your best practice. Like you can see in this example, a very systematic timeline is given from 2010 until 2023, where they show that how they progressed, gradually, how did the process gradually take place, and what major decisions were taken in this period of over 10 years. So it's important that you systematically organize your information and provide exactly what happened in those stages. Also, it's important to highlight what resources were used. So in this example, it's a very good example of how they utilize their social media. If there was an public awareness initiative, what initiatives were taken. So you can see over here, there were various activities taken. So if there is a transformation project, or if there is even a small change happening in the organization, were the people trained or retrained, upskilling, reskilling, what was done so that everybody's on the same page and they understand that what change is happening. So you have to have a clear change management process in place, and using visuals is a very good strategy. So in DONES, if you can see here, it's all text. Though it is written that a detailed timeline of implementation stages, including pilot, full scale, but then no detailed information is provided. It is just a very general blanket statement that, we can say, but then there is no objective, take on it. There is no factual data supporting it. So always provide non-elusive statements. Be very clear in your description, and provide details about your best practice, how you deployed it, how you implemented it. General tips for level of deployment would be, if you started a particular best practice like 5 years ago, so what is the current status? Is it complete? Is it ongoing? And if it is, continuing in the future, till when it will be, and what are the next steps that you're planning for it? So it should also be mentioned. If there is a product or service, don't just focus on the end product. How what all led you to that product or service is important. So the description of the deployment is very important. For section 2.3, innovation, this is the section where you highlight the wow factor of your best practice. What makes your best practice stand out against other contemporaries or other organizations that may be having the same best practice? Does your best practice need to be always very revolutionary or avant-garde? No. It can be a very mundane process, which every organization has. But then if you changed it, if you consider it as a best practice, what makes your best practice stand out against others? For example, what was the innovation in that? If you see this example on the left, it had 16 to 19 steps earlier, but then they moved that process to a 3-step application process. So this journey from 16 to 19 to 3, the current 3, there must be some innovation happening. And of course, there must be some innovation happening. Otherwise, how would you reach from 20 to 3? So you have to explain that innovation very nicely, so that there is no ambiguity and there is no it is not left to the judges to decide, okay, is this innovative? You have to be very crystal clear. Okay, this is an innovation and this is how we did it. So if you see on the right, it is all text. It is very difficult to, gather and fathom that is it really an innovative practice? The judges don't have to force themselves to believe that it is a best practice. It should be right in front of their eyes. So you have to, highlight the wow factor of your innovation. So general tips, you can read them, in detail. But then what I like, when we see applications, what we like the most is when you compare yourselves against your industry contemporaries, your other organizations in your country, your region, or internationally. How do you compare yourself against them? What is your innovation against these industries or these nations? So that is a very good, recipe for success. If you highlight that in your application, the judges are really impressed if you do some benchmarking in innovation. So I would hand over the mic to Dr. Robin Mann, who will be taking us through the rest of the application. Over to you,
Okay,
Dr.
thank
Robin.
you. Thank you, Alma. So performance, this is actually critical to the application. If specifically if you're targeting a 5-star and above recognition, if you can't show how your performance has improved since introducing the best practice, then it's very unlikely you'll achieve 5 stars and above. So you need to be measuring your performance and be able to show, say, before and after performance. And ideally, you'll be able to show that in 2 scenarios, one in terms of non-financial benefits, like for more operational measures, and secondly, for financial measures, which is how your organization has benefited and saved money due to these efficiencies or increased its revenue, or if you're a government organization, how you've benefited your citizens, saving them time, which is ultimately saving your citizens money too. So be very clear about selecting metrics that are also directly relevant to your best practice. So sometimes we see metrics displayed, but the relationship between the best practice is not clear. So make sure that is clearly, that there is that direct line between the best practice itself, what's described in the description section, and the performance metrics you use. The best way to describe your performance metrics is through graphs, because this is the easiest way for the judges to see before and after performance and to see the trend in performance, whether that performance is going to be sustainable for the future or not. So do please have some graphs in your application. It's just so much visually easy it's anything that's visual is much easier to understand very quickly from a jury's perspective. So you see an example here where no graphs were provided, just written text. And sometimes we just get written text and it just says our performance improved substantially without even describing the actual metrics used and the levels, the difference between the level of performance beforehand and afterwards. So in those cases, if you're not showing metrics, it's just very, very difficult for the judges to assess this section, and you certainly wouldn't get 5 stars and above. So you can also provide tables too, but graphs are better. So tables are good, but graphs are better for showing data. With graphs, it's much easier to identify trends in performance than showing tables. Sometimes, though, tables can be useful if you have got quite a number of metrics which are relevant to the best practice. You can probably share a lot more information within a table, but still, even if you have a table, I would also then show a few graphs. But so some organizations might even have 10 metrics related to a best practice, and this is why they use a table to show the performance of all of them, then highlight the 3 key ones within a graph. But again, make sure your best practices are related. Don't just show lots of graphs as well, or lots of performance metrics if it's not clear what their relationship is with the best practice. because sometimes this happens with organizations. They do share sometimes many graphs, but the metrics used just do not seem to be relatable. So you might have good performance, but if it can't be related to the best practice, it makes the jury's job that much harder. So again, we've got do's and don'ts, which pretty much describes here what I've just said. And so you can read this in your own time later on. And then we move to best practice evidence. Again, this is quite critical. So best practice evidence can be provided in a number of different ways. It could be that you've already achieved some recognition for your best practice, and that can be provided as best practice evidence. It could be that you've benchmarked your practice against other organizations, which can be considered as evidence if you can show your performances at a high level against those comparisons. It could also be that you've utilized benchmarking when you develop the best practice. Again, this provides some evidence that you're implementing a best practice if you can then say that you've actually improved on the learning you've had from other organizations. So there's a variety of ways in which you can share best practice evidence. So this is the ideal way where you could share best practice evidence is through a metric showing how you compare against others. But actually, in most cases, this is very difficult to find to get to compare like against like data. So we get very few applications where they have done the can compare via benchmark data, just because of the difficulty of comparing various processes which are often specific to their own organization against the process of other organizations. But if you have got benchmark data against other organizations or against other sites, if you're a large organization, you might be comparing your subsidiary against other subsidiaries, then please do show that benchmark data. In this example as well, they also showing that this actually was the case for the United Arab Emirates for SIHA when it's introducing the COVID test centres, the drive-through COVID test centres in the UAE. More people have been tested in the UAE than anywhere else in the world, so therefore they were number one in terms of that particular benchmark. But also when they introduced that approach, they did benchmark their process against Korea, and so they could actually show in their application how they did the benchmarking against Korea and how actually they improved their process as well. So when people were being tested, it was a faster process and a far more efficient process. So if you have achieved awards of recognition for the practice, then please share them with us. Again, in some cases, you just can't do that. Sometimes your practice is a very new practice and you have not got any recognition elsewhere for it up to date, or up to now. And that is why you're applying for the International Best Practice Competition. So again, you can't always provide this information, but if you can, please provide it. Again, try not to overwhelm the jury sometimes, or try to impress the jury too much. So some organizations include every award they've ever received, and often they're not related to the particular best practice. So in that case, the jury will think you're trying to hoodwink them in some way, or it's just not a good thing to do. Just make sure that your awards or recognition that you've achieved are directly related to your best practice. The jury are more likely to mark you down if you show lots of awards that are not related to your best practice rather than mark you up. So something jury members do not like. They want to make sure that everything you're showing is related to the particular best practice that's presented in the written application. So some do's as well. I mean, so in terms of providing the best practice evidence, if you can't provide sort of benchmark data, if you haven't undertaken any benchmarking against other organizations, there might be still some other evidence you can share. It might be you've been asked to give presentations at conferences on your best practice. It might be that you've been audited, and in that audit, your particular practice has been highlighted as a really strong process. It might be your suppliers have commended you for that particular practice or process. So there are various other ways as well to show that this is potentially a best practice. The final assessment criteria is the review criteria. And this is really providing assurance that what you've put in place is going to continue for the future and is going to be sustainable. So it's asking you, how will the practice be sustained or evolved in the future? Are you regularly reviewing performance? What has been learned from implementing the practice? And again, please be transparent on this. So if you have still got opportunities for improvement, if there are still some weaknesses in your approach that you've identified, please share them. The jury, actually, you're not going to be not marked negatively for that. They'll think that's a strength, as long as you can then provide reasons or approaches how you're going to address those performance gaps, how you're going to address those opportunities for improvement. So again, for the review stage, the more detail you provide here is very useful. So rather than just sort of bland statements saying that we review our current processes and we're always trying to improve them, if you provide timelines of what you're going to be implementing in the future to improve that practice, then that's a more powerful way of sharing that information. Okay, so that's an overview of how to write an application, and also an overview of the International Best Practice Competition. Obviously, you'll need to provide details of your own organisation too. And please remember that the main reason that you're participating in this event is the opportunity for learning as well. So to be open to the comments you receive from my team, and be open to the comments from the jury. Everybody who's involved in this process is trying to help you. And we just all want to make this competition as fabulous as possible, a great learning event for all of us. We do also have those 3 other awards too, and you can find information on them on the website. The last thing that I want to point out is in terms of the early bird fees. So the 3rd of March deadline for early bird is quite important. So to qualify for the early bird rates, you need to pay your entry fee and submit your application by the specified early bird date. That's one way of qualifying for the early bird fee, is by paying the fee and submitting your application. But there are other ways too. You could just pay your entry fee if you've not got time to write your submission at the moment, but know that you will be entering the competition at a later date. Because generally we actually close the application phase in early May. So this is really the first call for applications. So you can submit later on, but if you pay your entry fee now, you'll still qualify for the early bird entry fee, and you can submit your application later. I don't suggest you do submit your application close to the May date. I would still suggest you submit your application as soon as it is ready, because, as I say, we provide feedback, and you want as much time as possible to be able to act on that feedback and improve your written application. So you can pay your entry fee now and therefore qualify for the early bird fee. Or the 3rd option is you could submit your written application or a partially completed application by the 3rd of March. And then, because in some cases, some organizations they need to get permission from the finance department or the superiors to enter the competition, and they can't get that by the 3rd of March. So in which case you could submit a partial or completed application by the 3rd of March, and then send our team an email saying that you are going through the process of getting the payment. And as long as we receive the payment within 21 days of receiving the application, then we'll still allow you to benefit from the early bird fees. So with that, thank you so much for listening to this session. And we're open for about 10 minutes now for any Q&A questions you may have. So hopefully that was enlightening for you all. Let me stop sharing the slides. There we are. Okay, do we have any thoughts, any comments, anybody? Was it easy to understand? Will you be participating? We do, in fact, as well have some jury members here too who've participated as in the past, as jury members. Maybe if 1 or 2 of them would like to comment on their experience as a jury member, that might be useful. Trish or Atif.
I'll jump in, team. Thank you. And it's very, very detailed, and it's great what the whole competition is about, just inspiring people with best practice and improvement. If I can add to what Dr. Almus was saying, I think the fact that you're going to share this video is key. And if people go through the video and actually watch all the points back and follow those points quite a lot of detail, that will really help the application, because you add a lot of really good information and insights about how to present people's best practice journey. And I think that's key, because yes, your point about there's so many, if you get a whole lot of words, it's very difficult to understand what's going on. But if you get pictures and graphs and timelines, then it's much easier to analyze and also get excited and interested in the project.
Okay, thank you.
And I think, Robin, if I can add here, I think my message would be like you start with the process, because the main and most important part is that you have something to share. Come forward, start developing your application. And I think the first phase of this process where core provide feedback is very, very important, because and you can always build on that feedback. So I think, yes, application process is very rigorous, because I have been part of IBPC for many years. I see the rigorous evaluation and assessment in the process. But I think you have to start from somewhere. If you have something to showcase, come forward, build on your application. It's an interesting process. You will love it. I mean, when you start the process with the basic feedback, and then the feedback will move forward, and we will make sure that you improve as you move forward. And at the end, your organization is going to get benefit of it, from improving performance, from getting the best mileage from this process. So I would highly encourage organizations to participate in this process and just start the process. I mean, and then you can move forward as you process the application. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. Any more comments, anybody, before we close the session? Again, we look forward to as many people here participating, and then we'll get to know you very well indeed over the next few months. And I say the more as well you can encourage your colleagues to get involved, and then the greater the competition will be. I mean, our intention when we run the International Best Practice Competition is to try each year to increase the number of applicants to the competition, because then we grow the database of best practices as well, which everybody can learn from. And so that will help organizations all around the world to improve. So thank you so much for listening to us. Contact us anytime if you want any further information, and have a wonderful day or a wonderful night's sleep, whatever time of the day it is with you. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you. And now we've got a little bit of time for any Q&A. So if you have got any questions, that would be wonderful. If you participated in the competition, would like to share your experience, that would be wonderful too. So, yep, it's a free for all. Anybody, any questions? You can just unmic yourself and ask a question.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Neeraj from India.
Hi.
Should I turn my camera on?
It's up to you. I'd like to see you.
Okay. Okay, I've turned my camera on. So what I wanted to check is, sorry, I was not able to attend the session. I manage business excellence for my organization, business excellence, which we follow the EFQM 2025 model. What I want to know, what is the, you have any detailed brochure or a literature which will give me an understanding of how should we articulate, what are the steps that we have to cover while detailing about the process and for the competition, and of course the fees, etc., all that. Do we have detailed literature or a brochure for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's all on the International Best Practice Competition website. So you just need to go to the website. Everything is there.
Okay.
There's also a brochure on the website which you can download. And you can also download the entry form. So I think that's the first port of call.
Okay.
But again, if you want any additional help or a presentation or information just to your organization, we're welcome for any of my team to support you in that.
Oh, got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Do we have any comments from any jury members? I see a few jury members here today. Any comments from jury members who experienced a competition before?
Robin, I have a question,
Sure.
if I may. Do you publish the applications like on the website, for instance, afterwards?
They're all inside the bpr.com website resource. We publish a few winners on the International Best Practice Competition website, but all of them go into the bpr.com. And so all participants will have access to all of them.
Yeah, but the outside public wouldn't, or would?
No, they can access. We usually have 1 or 2 videos. You can see the winner videos, I think, on the International Best Practice Competition website. There will be a couple of winner videos.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay,
not
thank you.
maybe not the written applications, but the winner videos are available. A few of them. I could send an email around that later on, or Dr. Almas could share it in chat right now.
Mr. Willie, I think
Yeah.
we take permissions before publishing the content. So if any organization is a little hesitant, so you can convey that to us. But then that factor should not deter you from participating, because it's about your recognition and your organization. So it is only
I think
published
you're
with
just
due
asking whether they're publicly available, Almas. That's all, but they're not. The majority are inside the bpr.com, but there are a few of them on the Best Practice Competition website that are freely available.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we also publish some. We have some blogs as well on the bpr.com where we highlight some of them too. And but yes, this is the opportunity would be really to take more advantage of those, I guess, and share them even more widely. We do a lot of social media as well, and where we highlight aspects of the best practices. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes left. Anything else? I see, Dr. Atif, do you want to share your experience of being a jury member at all?
Yes, why not? I think, I joined IBPC, I think 2020. And since then, Robin, I see the improvement in the application, quality of competition. And I think this is great opportunity for organizations to present their good work and learn from others. I think this is very unique aspect of bpir.com that comes with the competition. So it's not only that you actually participate in the competition, but you get access to bpi.com that gives you more, access to information that can help you to improve performance. So it's really great experience for me as a jury member. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and if anybody here can help us to promote the competition even more, we'd be grateful for your support too. The more organizations that participate, the better. And say the more we all learn together. Okay, I think that's it. Last opportunity for somebody to say something, otherwise we'll close this session. There will be another session tomorrow at a different time, trying to track people from a different time zone. And I think you'll find that time on the website too, if you know of people who might want to join a session like this. Okay, thank you very much indeed, and I look forward to your participation.
Dr. Robin, there's a query from
Okay.
Afzal Lapatel.
What's the query?
We have won few excellence awards for those submissions. We have included our best practices. So can we mention it in section 2.5?
Only if when you've won those excellence awards, and there has to be strong related to your best practice. So if you've won excellence awards, which are obviously more holistic than a specific best practice, then I think you could say you've won an Excellence Award, and in that Excellence Award, they highlighted your best practice as a contributor. If otherwise, then don't mention the Excellence Award. The best practice has to be strongly related to the award. So yes, you can mention you won a Best Business Excellence Award if, when you achieve that Business Excellence Award, that best practice was highlighted as a major contributor to it, or there's a comment about it. Because otherwise, if you don't have something like that, you're just saying, well, we should win the best practice, we should be recognized for a best practice because we've won a Business Excellence Award, which is wrong. You're being you need to be recognized specifically for your best practice, and nothing else. Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, I think we'll close the session. Thank you so much indeed. Take care, everybody. It's late here in New
Thank you.
Zealand.
All the best.
Time to relax
Bye.
here. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.